today we are so happy to be joined with HeatherAsh Amara.
So for those of you who don't know HeatherAsh's work, she's the founder of Toki, the Toltec Center of Creative Intent, and the author of a number of books, including the Warrior Goddess Training Series. She brings an open-hearted, inclusive worldview to her writings and teachings, which are a rich blend of Toltec wisdom, European shamanism, Buddhism, and Native American ceremony. She lives in Austin, Texas, and travels extensively, although I think right now she's in New Mexico, as we were just talking. So you can visit her website to learn more at heatherashamara.com. And in today's conversation, we're excited to be talking with her about living life as your most authentic self. So HeatherAsh, welcome to our Soul to Soul Conversations. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks so much, Sarah and Christopher. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Well, when we were going through the topics of everything that we wanted to cover and get super focused on, this was a must, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got sent your books and okay, yep, this is it for sure. And I'm just so happy to have you on to talk about this important topic, because I know in this world of right now, a lot of things going on, a lot of chaos, but there's also this incredible shift happening, and people are really coming into themselves like never before, right? And trying to find their authentic voice. This is important. So thank you.
Yes. And I was drawn to this quote of yours on your website that I think is a really great way to sort of open up this conversation. And I wrote out the quote here. It says, "When we bring our attention back to discovering who we are on the inside, not who we wish we were or who we think we should be, we begin a sacred path of transformation toward our innate, authentic, embodied power." So what do you find is the most common obstacle that people are facing regarding discovering who they are on the inside, that authentic self?
I'd say the biggest obstacle that I see is people's tendency to abandon themselves. So a lot of times we've been trained to put our attention outside or to be a certain way. And so for a lot of us, we're constantly comparing ourselves to who we think we're supposed to be. And we often have this image of perfection. And so instead of being with ourselves at home in our being, and that's where authenticity stems from, we're constantly looking at, who am I supposed to be? Who do other people want me to be? Who should I be now? And any time that we compare or criticize ourselves or think we should be someplace else or wish we were more like we were before, we're abandoning ourselves. And that I've seen is the biggest pain point that we have and the biggest stumbling block to stepping into our authenticity for sure.
And when do you think it starts, or where do you think it comes from that we even start to put pressure on ourselves to become something we think we should be or what others want us to be?
It starts really young. So usually right around when we start learning language, we start separating from the world around us, because instead of being completely immersed in the world, we start to learn the names of things and we start to distance ourselves. And around that time, we start to be domesticated of who we should be in the world, how we should behave, how we should treat other people. And there's a beauty about domestication. It's really important that humans get domesticated. It's just the truth. And unfortunately, a lot of times our parents or the people that are caregivers for us have learned how to be in relationship with other humans from a very conditional place. I'll love you if. So if you behave, if you're a good boy or girl, if you do what I tell you to do, then you earn love. And so what happens is we start feeling like in order to be lovable, we have to be something else. So that creates all sorts of problems, because then we're constantly looking outside of ourselves of how am I supposed to be, rather than feeling I'm loved, I'm holding myself unconditionally, because we end up saying to ourselves, I'll love you if. So we then start domesticating ourselves, basically.
And I think it's probably been sped up a little bit since the dawn of the internet and social media and everything else, of really that wave of technology coming in. it's so easy now. We go on Instagram, go on Facebook, you see all these people, oh my gosh, look at the life they're living. Of course, they're showing their,
The highlight reel.
the highlight reel of
Yes.
their lives. But you can get sucked into this rabbit hole and go down it really quick. And it almost really, I mean, it takes you away from some of maybe the healing that you've done as well, just because it's like, it's almost a regression just going through this.
Which in and of itself is part of the path, I
It
suppose,
is.
to stray, to find oneself again, if they're willing to, or if we are willing to
Have the awareness around it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that is really the key, is the awareness of where we're leaving ourselves, where we're abandoning ourselves, where we're putting conditions on who we should be. And it's so true. We have so much reflection from the media and from advertising and now from social media. This is what your life should look like. And it's so photoshopped, not real. I was so funny the other day, because I really try in my social media to every once in a while throw in, like, this is what it's also like. Because I have an amazing life, and I also crash, and I also have temper tantrums and get grumpy sometimes. And so every once in a while I'll throw a post up like, this is what I look like today, not so hot. And I've had friends reflecting, they're like, really, you shouldn't be doing that, HeatherAsh. I'm like, yes, I should. We need to see all of it. And that's a piece around the authenticity as well, is I think sometimes people confuse authenticity with perfection. Like, I'm authentic if I'm centered and I'm present and I'm in love, then I'm being authentic. But sometimes you're authentic and you're having a grumpy day, and that's just authentic. Without the story.
I think it's really important you made that distinction there, just because, again, it's only showing facets. We need to show our whole selves. And that is a part of the human experience, as you're talking about those days. I mean, we all have them. It's a journey. It's a roller coaster.
That's something that we've strived to do as well with our personal social media pages and our business pages as well, is to show that, like, we have this amazing relationship, but guess what? We have challenges too. Or we just had this baby boy and he's miraculous and beautiful, but hey, it's hard sometimes, and this is what it looks like today. And we've received a lot of feedback from people who are like, thank you for sharing this, because I'm having a day too, and I needed to know that it was okay. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's so important.
Absolutely. And what are some of the common signs that people might be living out of alignment with their true selves? And we talked about how that might disrupt their life a little bit, but maybe if you can get into that just a little bit more.
Yeah, a sense of being irritable, frustrated, of constantly looking outside to see what everybody else wants you to be. And also the places that we feel, what's the right word for it, where we feel flat. So sometimes people go to they tend to go towards like anger, frustration, or else numbness. Like, I just have to be this way, or there's nothing else that I can do. So there's a passivity that starts to happen, and an underlying joylessness, I'll put it that way, that people have, because they're really in a rut. Yeah.
It's almost like a life burnout symptom or something, you know? Like, I'm thinking of myself in my past when I was living inauthentically, and just how tired I was all the time.
Yes, exhausted, exactly.
Unmotivated, not confident in what I was doing, things of that sort. If someone's feeling that way, that means that they might have some work that they might want to do to start pulling off those masks. So how could someone even begin exploring what it means to truly be themselves, not who they think they are, who they should be, or what other people want them to be?
Yeah. So really it comes down to becoming aware and starting to witness yourself. And a good place to start is to start to ask yourself, what roles am I playing that actually aren't serving me? Or where are the places that I've taken on a role and I believe that's who I am supposed to be, rather than just putting the role on, taking the role off? Because there's going to be roles particular role you have at work, or if you're a parent, or if you're a teacher, for example. But none of those are who you actually are. They're just masks that you're putting on to function, to take off. There are certain ways that we can get really caught in the roles. And so that's a good place to look. And the other place is, where are you believing that you should be different than you actually are? Where are the places? Because again, we can do this of, I should be more successful, or I should be more like this other person over here. But we can also do the thing of like, I should be more loving. So it sounds spiritual and good, but I've seen so many people beat themselves up because they're not loving enough, or because they're not present enough. And so we have to be really careful with how tricky our minds can get.
What would be a good way for someone to reword? Because the one thing is that I like to do, and he likes to as well, if I find myself saying something that feels limiting in any way or not true to me, I'll then stop and then I'll rephrase it to something that feels more authentic. What would be a way they could, if someone was saying, oh, I should be more loving, or I should be more spiritual, or I should be this, if they found themselves saying that, what's a way they could perhaps honor themselves where they are by like, how could they reword it to honor themselves where they are?
Yeah, a couple ways. One is to say, I'm learning how to be more loving. Mm-hmm. I'm learning to bring love into this situation. I'm practicing bringing love into this situation. And then it's more of I'm exploring, I'm learning as I go along. We give ourselves permission to make mistakes. We give ourselves permission to do it not to the standards we'd like, but to be with where we're at, and to know we want to grow our capacity.
I'm glad you shared that. That's something that I practiced a lot on my journey, is that, especially when there was something that, I'm learning how to be more accepting. I'm learning how to, insert whatever it is that you're learning how to, but now it's then transformed to I am, because
when you feel that
it's a feeling, it's an intuitive feeling that you get that, okay, yeah, that resonates now, but at one point it didn't. And so it's definitely that practice was really transformative for me.
Well, it goes along the lines of positive affirmations that don't feel so authentic when you don't feel beautiful and you're trying to tell yourself, I am beautiful. That used to get under my skin because I would say it to myself if I didn't feel it, but I'm still saying it.
Yeah. Then you want it more. You want it more.
Exactly. And then you start to feel guilty for not feeling like you feel beautiful. Like, why don't
you should be doing it? Exactly.
So I'm also curious what you think about our identification with labels. And just go ahead and talk about that. Like, what's going on there? Someone might say, oh, I'm so shy or I'm so creative, because that's another thing. People seem to think that labels are only a negative thing if it's a negative perceived label, but we also attach ourselves to positive labels as well. And I mean, we do it all the time in our language, and we try to stop and observe and see what's happening. But I'm curious to see what you just think about that topic.
Yeah, in my in the Toltec work that I'm part of, one of the things that we talk about is self-effacement versus self-importance. So self-effacement is, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, I should be different. So anybody who's in more self-effacement is always less than, considers themselves less than, and their language reflects that. Someone who is in self-importance is feeling like they feel I'm better than. Okay, neither are authentic. There are ways that we're trying to create safety, basically. So the self-important in, I've got this, I am super this way, I'm always like this. And what we want to do is start to look at where are the places that we get stuck in either of these two polarities, and realize none of the labels are true. They're in motion. So in this moment, I may be that participating or doing in that thing, whatever it is. I may be creative right now, but again, that's not who I am, whether it's the most magical thing or the most terrible thing. And this is something that I talk to my teachers a lot about, is like, sometimes when people step into teaching, they're immediately like, I'm a teacher now, which means da 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 da. and they can go into self-importance really easily. Like, I'm supposed to be perfect now. And so this place of us really watching ourselves really carefully of what languaging we're doing, where we're trying to make ourselves better by using a label, or where we're trying to make ourselves worse by using a label. And what happens when you say that, what happens, I always look at what's happening in the energy. So when I say something, what happens with my energy? Does it drain my energy, or does it brighten my energy? And to always watch over time. In any label, if you keep leaning into the label over time, it's going to dampen your energy.
And I'm glad you used that teacher example. Just thinking back of, sometimes the self-centeredness, like you said, the self-importance can come up, and you really turn yourself off from being a student in that situation. Because when we're teaching something, when we're delivering a speech, when we're delivering a workshop, or whatever it might be, we're also students at that time, because the people are mirroring, they're mirrors for us. So we're learning through their experiences, and that is what creates that magical flow space.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a
So
really good
true.
example.
I find too that labels tend to box us into this idea of who we think we are, and we'll identify with them so much so that we don't allow ourselves to be or experience anything outside of that label.
Exactly.
And it's like a mom bringing her kid to a family gathering, a 2-year-old, and people want hugs, and this little girl is hiding behind her mom's legs, and you hear everybody say, "Oh, she's so shy, she's so shy." That little girl hears "I'm shy" over and over. Eventually she identifies with, "Oh, I'm just a really shy person," and that might keep her from going out and taking risks and putting herself out there and making friends. So
I think one of the biggest thing is, and it's obviously very apparent to us at this point, just because we just had a baby, is you're such a good boy. You're such a
Oh my gosh,
you're
I
such a
know.
good boy. Oh my.
what's the detriment do you find with even those types of things, especially starting with our parents saying you're a good boy, oh you're so perfect, oh you're so beautiful?
Yeah. What the detriment is then we think, in order to get love, I have to be good. In order to get love, I have to be beautiful. Because if that's connected with conditions, like, oh, now you're a bad boy, so what's the punishment for being a bad boy? So it's tricky. I mean, the languaging is so tricky of
It's
how
really hard.
to, it's really hard. And really what I think about is, how can you put the love behind everything? So even if that you're not doing the good bad, that even when the dog or the kid or your beloved is doing something that is difficult or is challenging, how do you still bring the love through while you set the boundary, or while you help them course correct? How do you still stay connected is really the key, much more than the language even. It's the connection behind the words.
Yeah.
If you're feeling particularly challenged, maybe perhaps in a relationship, or the examples that you were just using, how might you handle that situation with yourself to honor where you are emotionally, but to also, like you said, setting the boundaries and communicating authentically? What does that look like to someone who might not understand?
So the first thing for me with authenticity is being honest with where we're at, what's actually going on for us. And so to name what the feelings are, just check in with what's happening in my body, to check in with what's the story that I'm telling myself. If you have those pieces of you're honest what the feeling is, you're honest what the story is, and you don't necessarily say these are true things. These are things that are in flux. Your feelings are in flux. The story is in flux. So holding the feelings and the story. And then when you communicate, instead of projecting the feelings onto somebody else or creating a story where they should get punished or you should punish yourself, because usually we go into shame or blame, either blaming ourselves or feeling ashamed or blaming the other. To keep moving past all of those, to get clear about what is it that you actually want to communicate. What's the outcome that you're going for yourself? Because just because you communicate completely perfectly and authentically and connected doesn't mean the other person's going to be able to do what you're asking or be able to hear you. But if you know you're being authentic, that you're connected, that you have the widest vision possible, and that you share what that is, you're not responsible for how the other person takes it.
Mm.
You're responsible for how you're delivering it, and that you're delivering it in the cleanest, clearest way possible, knowing they're going to do with it what they're going to do with it.
That's so refreshing to have. You basically just gave like a step-by-step process in that moment. And I hope our viewers take that to heart, because I know for ourselves, putting something like that into practice has been amazing for our relationship. So imagine what that could do for your life. Yeah.
It's incredibly freeing and empowering, and it's amazing. So I'm curious, what could be in store for us individually and collectively if we were to step into our authentic power and just really embrace that?
Yum. So we would be much more connected to our creativity and our intuition, and to really following inner guidance. So the possibilities are so huge of what happens when we each step into our authenticity, of how the communication starts to clean up. We're not living in story as much anymore. We start to let go of the stories and the needing to understand and describe, and start to live in the present moment and live in the truth, and be able to communicate from what our truth is, understanding somebody else's truth might be completely different than ours, and that's okay. So a lot of the conflict that we have internally and externally starts to dissipate. And that's what I love, is in that spaciousness, we can then grow who we really are and have that sense of connection and that sense of inner peace that then allows creativity to flourish, which is what we really need right now, is a lot of creativity.
We absolutely do. And I feel that creative energy really coming in strong, at least for myself lately, but also as on a collective. I do moving into 2020. It feels like a very creative year, a lot of innovation happening.
Well, and it seems that people are really yearning for that authentic expression. It's a word that I think was thrown around when I didn't really know what it meant. I know a lot of other people were probably like, what does that even mean? And then over the last few years even, I feel like more people are like, I want to know who I truly am,
Yes.
It's that clarity. Yeah. I think that happens a lot in the spiritual community though, overall, like the words that we throw around and they get muddled, and it just gets to be really just confusing because it's sitting on a surface level. It's not really diving deep underneath where we need to go with it. And authenticity is one of those words. And it's like, what does it actually mean? And that's why this conversation right now is so important, and it kind of cleans and clears the air up a little bit.
Yeah, so true.
Well, it sounds like you're really giving permission. You're giving space for people to give themselves permission to be vulnerable, to honor themselves where they're at, to be seen for who and what they are in that moment, knowing that it will change and it's malleable, and it should be a fun journey as well as we kind of explore, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things I've really learned is that as humans, we can use everything against ourselves. Like even the most beautiful teachings we can twist and use against ourselves. I should be more loving. I should meditate more. I should meditate more like this other person. I should be, whatever. Like we can take the most beautiful teachings and use them to punish ourselves and compare ourselves and criticize ourselves. And we also have the capacity to use everything to benefit ourselves, even the most difficult and challenging situations. So I feel like that's what I'm supporting myself and people in doing, is how do we know as humans there's going to be challenges. Being in a human body is challenging, period. There's lots of things that go awry. People don't behave the way they're supposed to behave, and things happen that are out of our control. And so when we come into alignment, this for me is part of authenticity, is coming into alignment with life. And that life is super unpredictable. It's just the truth. And so as we align with life, as we come into that place of authentic alignment, we're able to use everything that happens as gold to help us to grow. So even the most challenging situations, we're like, okay, hello, what do you have to teach me? I always say, when an obstacle arises, instead of judging the obstacle, running away from the obstacle, making the obstacle your fault, to really turn and face the obstacle and go, you are a worthy obstacle. All right, let's go. Because anytime an obstacle or a challenge arises, it gives you the opportunity to raise your energy to meet the obstacle.
And what I
like how you said everything is gold. Use it as it's all gold.
It's
everything is
all
gold.
wonderful,
it's all
teachable moments. And we've got our fair share over the past 5 years. We've got our asses kicked, really.
Yeah. Sometimes that happens for sure.
But it's all beautiful, and I am who I am. She's who she is today because of all of those challenges, all of the trauma, all of the pain. And it's ever changing. And it's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Earlier you mentioned how people can begin, exploring this truth of who they are underneath these masks. Do you have any tangible steps or something simple our viewers who are watching today could maybe experiment with or start trying to remove a mask or two here or there?
Absolutely. So I have a practice that I call the Warrior Heart practice, which is really specifically to help people get out of their roles and out of their stories. And it's super simple. So it's based on the 4 chambers of the heart, and that all of us we're learning how to get into our heart more and live more from a heart-centered place, and that the heart has 4 chambers and all of them are important. You don't go, oh, the chamber's more important. They're all important. So it's the same thing with the 4 chambers of the Warrior Heart practice. So the first chamber is the feeling chamber. And you always start with, what am I feeling? So in terms of a role or a situation that you're challenged by, start by asking yourself, what am I feeling? And what you want to learn to do is separate the feeling from the story. So you're just going towards the physical sensations and experience in your body of the feeling. Then, once you've named the feeling and just let yourself sit with the feeling, I could talk about this for hours, but I'll do the quick version. Then you go to the story chamber. And the story chamber, the question is, what am I telling myself? What's the story? And then you start exploring and giving yourself permission to really look at what the story is. Not what you think the story should be, or not the spiritual version of the story, but what are you really telling yourself? What are the judgments? Where's the fear? What's going on? And that there's layers to the story. So often the role that we think we're playing is not just about this present moment. It's a much older story or much older role that's going forward. Then we go to the truth chamber. And what most of us do is we think we're telling the truth, but we've written a better story and we're calling it the truth. So how you know if something is actually true is it's super simple. The truth is one sentence with a period at the end. So anytime you try justifying it, or anything that comes after the comma or the period is now story again. So that's how you know. And there's a feeling sense in the body when you hit the truth. Even if you don't like the truth, you're like, yep, I got it. This is true. And then the 4th chamber is the intent chamber. And that's, what do I want for myself? What quality do I want to focus on right now? Intent, one word. So you then take that intent, and that might be compassion, presence, play, can be anything. You take your intent, you go back into the truth chamber. So you circle back around. And then you're going to take your intent and the truth and go back into the story chamber. And so if it's around a role, you start to look at, well, what's true? Am I really this role? What's true here? What's my intent? And then you would go back and start to unweave the story or look at the role in a different way. And that allows us, again, that spaciousness, because the truth chamber and the intent chamber have a lot of space. And usually the feeling and the story are really convoluted and twisted together, and they're busy. So we're bringing the simplicity back into the story chamber to start to clear it out, make more space. And then you always close in the feeling chamber, because we want to teach ourselves how to be more in relationship with what's happening in our body rather than what we think about it. So you always want to close in the feeling chamber. So that's a real simple overview of the warrior heart practice. And those steps are really good to just write down. What am I feeling? What's the story I'm telling myself? What's actually true? What's my intent? And then to go back. And it unwinds things just so incredibly. Been so blessed to witness so many people clear big things in a short amount of time.
And I imagine after perhaps writing it down first to kind of get the hang of grasping a concept such as that and within yourself, after a while, it probably becomes such second nature to just move through those chambers on that spot in that moment. And I imagine that could open up so many doors in the moment instead of just processing it and things of that sort. But I like how you say we always want to start and end with the feeling of it.
Yeah, to come back there. I've been doing a podcast of just walking people through the chambers practice, and it's been unbelievable to see how fast I just talked to a woman who had a really intense incident when she was in the military that she's had a lot of shame around, and at the end she was like, okay, in 20 minutes I just unwound more than I have in the last 10 years.
Wow.
Boom, because we're learning to separate out. And I realized a while ago, so a lot of my work is actually helping people create separation between different aspects of themselves so that the pieces can get cleaned up so that we can bring it back together. It's not that they're really separate, but like if you have a car engine and you want to fix the car, right? You take it apart, you clean it. No part's bad. It's just, this part needs to be replaced, or this is a little tweaky, I've got to fix this. And then you put it back together and it works more effectively. It's the same thing with the warrior heart practice.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing. And I just love, that's awesome. And I can't wait to put that to practice. That's just makes so much sense. And it's not overwhelming. It's not like it's something incredibly hard to do. You can stop at any point of your day and do something like this. So that's awesome. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation and talking with you, and really your work is so transformative, and I'm just so excited to share this with the world. And I just want to know, I know, we're moving into a new year right now. It's end of 2019, moving into 2020. What do you have planned for 2020 and beyond? What things are you offering, and what things would you like to share with our viewers?
The biggest thing is that the Warrior Heart Practice book that I just shared about is coming out January 7th. So it's been a 6-year creation process. So I'm like, oh my God, 35 days to go. So that's exciting.
That's really exciting.
Yeah. I'm doing a lot of online launches around that and some physical launches. And then I'm doing doing a lot of work with leaders right now and teaching people how to facilitate the warrior heart practice and also the warrior goddess work that I do as well for women. So there's a couple trainings coming up in March for that.
Beautiful.
So those are the two biggest things coming up.
And what's your website?
HeatherAshAmara.com.
Perfect. We'll have it linked for everybody to check it out. Go on the website, get the book. By the time this launches, the book will be out and you can pick it up. Just so excited that this conversation happened, and I would love to do this again. And I feel like I'm going to be saying this with everyone that we're interviewing. I feel like, just because these conversations are so deep, and and I know they can get even deeper. So we'll look forward to hopefully bringing on our podcast at some point.
Beautiful. I look forward to that. Thanks so much.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy your evening.
Thank you.